The Bahrain Grand Prix was pretty uneventful, but we did learn a lot from the race. Things that will paint a better picture of what the 2024 season will bring to us, so let's take a look at who actually won in Bahrain and who actually lost. Biggest loser of the weekend is definitely Alpine. In quali they were nowhere, in the race they were, you guessed it, nowhere. People in important positions over at Alpine are handing in their resignation papers and the team is looking like it's about to collapse. It's not looking good for Alpine in the upcoming races. One very pleasant surprise from the Bahrain weekend is that the Haas car can actually qualify in the top 10 still. Hülkenberg did a fantastic job and managed to secure Q3 and could have gotten a pretty good result if not for that turn 1 incident. Another pleasant surprise was K-Mag in the later stages of the race, holding off the RBs and racing Zhou Guanyu for P11. The car is much better on its tires and maybe Haas will finally have a platform to continue building on. Williams had a nightmare race in Bahrain. The car was not on the pace for points, it looked weaker than the cars it should be fighting with, and they had plenty of issues throughout the entire race with their engines and steering wheels. Logan's brake bias turned up to nearly 100% and sent him off the track, and Albon had some engine issues throughout the entire race as well. Not a great weekend at all for a team that should be aiming for points. Most of the grid and the fans had no confidence in the Sauber team coming into this race. Their testing was very limited and they were not looking good in practice. However, Zhou racing to P11 and racing better than the Williams, the RBs and the Haas is a very good sign for Sauber. In the right circumstances, Sauber should be able to fight for some points later in the season. Mercedes' desperate goal has been to try and catch up to Red Bull, but after Bahrain, their new goal is to try and catch up to Ferrari. They've taken a very clear step backwards and their closest rival is looking to be the McLaren. Both teams pretty much had the same pace, but some cooling and battery issues plagued Mercedes throughout the entire race. Mercedes also have to factor in that Bahrain has always been a great track for them, while it has been among the worst tracks for McLaren. The pecking order between these two teams are not clear heading into Saudi Arabia, however it should be a better track for McLaren because of the high-speed corners. Coming into the new season, Ferrari had one goal in mind: fix the tire degradation issues. And while Leclerc was locking up everywhere in the first part of the race, and team orders still being an issue for the Scuderia, the tire degradation issues seems to be a thing of the past. Ferrari is clearly the second best car on the grid, it got past the Mercedes without any problems, and it was on the same pace as Perez's Red Bull, and the race between Ferrari and at least one of the Red Bulls is 100% on heading into the next race. Leclerc managed to get past Russell even with his issues, and they seem to have locked the last podium position ahead of McLaren and Mercedes. This time last year, Aston Martin came to the grid with the second best car. This year they've taken a massive step backwards. The car looked balanced but uninspiring. They are clearly behind the top 4 teams, but at the same time they have a clear margin to the bottom 5. They find themselves in a bit of a no man's land at the bottom of the points paying positions. If the Aston Martin is stuck racing for 9th and 10th for the rest of the season, then the development team over at Aston Martin has really fumbled the ball if you compare them to last year. Opposite to Aston Martin, McLaren came to the grid last year in Bahrain with one of the worst cars. Now in 2024, they seem in a much better place at one of their worst tracks. While still behind the Red Bulls that they could race for a little bit last year, they look slower than the Ferraris now as well. They had the same pace as Mercedes, which is good news for them, but on a track that better suits their car, they should be able to overtake the Silver Arrows. It was a disaster weekend for RB. They looked slower than the teams they were supposed to be faster than, and the drivers are already off to a bad start when it comes to the team dynamics. Tsunoda really dropped the ball with his bad handling of emotions. The team did not communicate their plans to him very well, which left him frustrated, and Ricciardo finished ahead of Yuki despite being slower than him all weekend, all thanks to the team order call. While the call was 100% correct by the team in order to attack Kevin Magnussen with Ricciardo's soft tires, they did a bad job of communicating that call, which destroyed that plan entirely. Tsunoda's actions on the cooldown lap, however, was completely unacceptable and a reprimand should be given. And then finally we have Red Bull. New car, new concept, same Red Bull. Max Verstappen dominates the Bahrain Grand Prix and left the competition and his own teammate in the dust, all while having plenty of race pace in hand. Perez managed to secure second place and had a very good start to his season, but the gap between him and Verstappen seems to be bigger than last year. Red Bull's only focus now should be to help Perez get more out of the car, so the Ferraris can't race him and they should be able to secure the title uncontested after that brilliant performance. These were your 5 biggest winners and losers from the Bahrain Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and also let me know who you think will show the biggest improvement at the next race in Jeddah. Hope you all have a nice week, and I will see you all next time in Saudi Arabia. Goodbye.